Making the invisible visible. Black women, 365 days of the year. Each day will spotlight a remarkable woman whose story has shaped Black, British or global diasporic history. Women whose achievements are too often overlooked. Through these daily short films, we create a living, breathing archive of leadership, creativity, resistance and legacy. Let's begin.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Kandre Hassan. I am a London-based visual artist and cultural practitioner. I would say a lot of my work explores how, Afro-diasporic experience and memory translates into symbology, mainly looking through things like, environment, atmosphere, movement, and essentially just trying to create my own world and specific visual language. But more than anything, I think I'm someone who's interested in how people just relate to space, to each other, and what that means for how we view ourselves and the people around us. For context, I also studied anthropology. So my work is just one big research process, really. I'm just very, very interested in people and how they operate. But yeah, I think that sums me up. I would say a recent experience actually, that has connected with me on a professional, personal, relational, all sorts of levels, was going to Dakar, Senegal. So I initially went there just because I've always wanted to go, and I booked the trip for my birthday, but it just ultimately ended up turning into a creative research trip because it just ultimately shifted the way I look at my entire practice. And it's allowed me to understand the importance of slowing down. I think as emerging young creatives, there is a constant pressure to produce a lot of work quite rapidly and, prove yourself, if that's, whether getting opportunities or networking or building contacts. There is a pressure to constantly produce output. But I think it just made me realize I have my whole life ahead of me, and there's actually no reason to rush. And some of the most beautiful ideas come from just sitting and thinking and slow forming over time. So yeah, I think it was a really spiritual experience that I am very, very appreciative of. And yeah, I think since that point, I've just seen such a massive improvement to my practice. Well, when it comes to my work, I think a lot of people clearly understand the intuitive side of things, mainly just through the response of that feeling that I was talking about previously. But I think I would love for people to understand that beneath all of it is a lot of care and attentiveness to the actual like research material that I'm building, because as much as it is, visual works, I'm also building like a cultural inquiry, and hopefully a meaningful addition to conversations that is not reinventing the wheel, but hopefully contributing a alternative perspectives to how we think and look at ourselves as Afro-diasporic people. So yeah, I think that's also one for me to consider, like the different forms that I would love to present my work in, whether that's like publications or something to really help people understand how large this ecosystem is. But yeah, I think I ultimately want people to understand that I am using art as a tool to create spaces of care, and just real internal honesty that we can hopefully reflect and build a better world together, you know? I think this is definitely a tough question for me because it's something that I'm still actively trying to figure out. at the moment, trying to figure out different ways, because I think when everything is so busy and compounded, it can be very easy to lose sight of prioritizing joy in the momentum. But ultimately, I've learned that creative growth rarely happens linearly. It is very sporadic and there's roots growing in different directions. So I try to just embrace all of those shifts in the moment and just be as present as I can, which is really hard for me as someone who, is planning constantly. But I think, yeah, just something that's like finishing a drawing, for example, just sketching something that I don't immediately do in my practice unlocks something new. So I think what I love to do is get inspiration and gather moments that aren't directly connected to my immediate practice, looking at architecture, going to watch a film, just immersing yourself in things that you wouldn't typically do. I think that's a way of definitely increasing joy, but exposing yourself to different ways of experiencing different forms of joy. I think that's very, very important. So, and being in community, I think that's a very obvious answer, but just through, exposing yourself to different types of experiences and moments of joy, you also expose yourself to different types of people. And I think ultimately that's where happiness is born from, but also gaining different perspectives. So that's what I would say.
Thank you for joining us for today's story. Making the Invisible Visible is our commitment to ensuring that Black women's histories and contributions are recognised, valued and kept in daily circulation. Across 2026, we will continue to share these powerful narratives, 365 days of impact, brilliance and inspiration. Stay connected, join the conversation and help us champion the women whose journeys continue to shape our world. I'm Paulette Brooks and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for the next